welcome to Shama TV. We are really lucky today because we're talking about branding and more importantly, rebranding. We are here with author Dorie Clark, who has a brand new book out on the topic. So Dorie, please tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really delighted to be here. So my book is called Reinventing You, and it's about professional reinvention. Essentially, fewer people these days have careers, for 30 years at the same company. And so whether we're changing careers entirely or moving to different companies, at some point we're going to need to reinvent ourselves.
So true.
Take control of our reputation.
And I love the premise of the book. I've gotten early copies, so I'm very excited, and we'll share the link, so if you guys want it, you can definitely get it. Highly recommended, by the way. And Dorie, one thing I really like about this, well, two things I love about the book. One is that you sort of rebranded yourself many times over in your career. So a lot of this is like personal experience. And then two, you give a lot of like how-to tips, very tactical. This is not like a heavy-handed theoretical guide on rebranding. You're sort of like walking and talking, and you are like the personification of rebranding yourself. So you've done it all, but give us a little sense of how many times like you've rebranded yourself in your career.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a few, actually.
Right.
I started out as a journalist, and then we got disrupted, and so I moved over into politics, and I became a gubernatorial spokesperson, and ultimately a spokesperson for a presidential campaign.
How cool.
And it was great. And then I ran a nonprofit for a few years, and then I launched my own business. And along the way, I made a documentary film. So there have been quite a few iterations.
Which is fantastic. So tell me, what is sort of your best tip for rebranding yourself as you go? Is there something that really sticks out for you?
Well, I think that the most important thing when you're rebranding is the power of narrative.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that for too few people, they don't really spend time thinking about how they'll tell the story of their transition. Because
I love that.
It may make sense to you, but it might not make sense to other people. And so you really have to connect the dots and paint the picture for them of where you've been, where you're going, and what value you can bring to your new position. Because sometimes you can offer things that people who've been on the same track all along could never even hope to.
That's fantastic. And I love that. So start with your story first, right? And then here's my other question for you, which is one that I get often, is, but Dorie, I don't want to rebrand. I wear multiple hats. And you know what? I wear multiple hats. I'm a multimedia journalist, entrepreneur, author, like all these different things that we're just sort of now, that's what it means to be a thought leader, I think. So how do you do that? How do you manage a brand that consists of multiple hats?
Well, I think that in many ways, if you're doing things simultaneously, you're right, you don't need to rebrand. But what you do need to do is make things intelligible for other people. You need to figure out what the through line is. Because if you're doing 10 different things and they all seem completely unrelated, people are going to think, oh, she's a dilettante,
right?
Or she doesn't know what she wants.
Sure, and you hear that a lot. And so what if someone has different brands that are, at least at the onset, very different? Like what if someone likes to knit and is a professional knitter, but they also are a business consultant or something that's totally different? Should you try to merge those brands together, or is it smart to keep them separate? Is that a better story?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I agree with you. I mean, I'm a speaker and a professor
Yeah.
and an entrepreneur as well, so I can empathize.
Right.
What I generally advise people, and I'd certainly love to hear your thoughts, is that if they're going to be, for instance, on a Twitter account, spending half their time talking about knitting and half about consulting, that can maybe get a little confusing for people.
Sure.
Some people might not be interested in the same thing. And so in those situations, you want two separate identities. But if you're primarily talking about consulting, but you want to periodically pepper it with personal items, that
like
gives
that.
you a three-dimensional portrait.
Okay.
And it says, oh, this is a real person. She's showing her interest.
What if someone's starting with a fresh slate? So you're not necessarily rebranding, but you're branding, you're branding you. What recommendations do you have? Do you feel like there's things that maybe you can watch out for in the beginning? And so that way, if you ever, as you rebrand, then it'll be easier to rebrand if, I guess, you've branded yourself as someone who's versatile.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, ultimately, everyone is, to a certain extent, starting with a brand, even if you haven't gone big on social or anything. I mean, ultimately, when we talk about personal brand, we mean your reputation. And so even if it's just your friends, your professors, your colleagues at internships, they think something about you. And the question is,
hopefully
what is
positive.
it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is it what you want it to be?
Yes.
And so figuring that out and taking control of it.
So I really love that too, that you should really assess and get a holistic sense of what your strengths are and what other people think your strengths are.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, there are many things that for each of us we may feel a little nervous about.
Yeah.
We may feel that it's a weakness.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dorie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Check out the book, Reinventing You. I wish you all the success. It's a great book, by the way, guys. Definitely check it out. Let us know what you think.